This episode is brought to you by RPM, the Rapid Planning Method. It's the system that Tony personally developed to make a plan for his life and create his $6 billion business empire, write best-selling books, travel the world for his events, and still have the time and energy to spend quality time with the people he loves most. We have a special offer for podcast listeners. Go to tonyrobbins.com/RPM and use the promo code POD20 to receive $20 off the Rapid Planning Method. That's tonyrobbins.com/RPM. The discount code is POD20. Women's History Month is the time where we celebrate the tremendous contributions that women all over the world have made. And in today's episode, we're bringing you an interview with one woman who has changed history. Her name is Sara Blakely, and Tony had the pleasure of speaking with her at his recent Business Mastery event in Palm Beach. She's the founder of shapewear company Spanx, and in 2012, at just 41 years old, she became the first female in the world to become a billionaire on her own without the help of an inheritance or a spouse. You've probably heard a lot about Sara's story because it's an incredible story. She went from failing the LSAT to being a greeter at Disney World to selling fax machines door to door to turning $5,000 of her own savings into a billion-dollar empire. But what you may not have heard before is everything in between. The exact steps she took to get her business off the ground, how she's overcome negative self-talk and limiting beliefs by doing the deep emotional work that many people unfortunately neglect, and how honoring both her feminine and masculine energies and finding the balance between them has been a key to her success. And beyond her extraordinary accomplishments, Sara is an extraordinary person. She's authentic. She isn't afraid to fail, to embarrass herself, or to be vulnerable. She's the first one to admit that she had no idea what she was doing when she started Spanx, but instead she had an insatiable determination to improve the way that women feel in their clothes. And most importantly, she's grateful. She hasn't lost sight that she was born in the right country at the right time, and the fact that there are millions of women around the world who are not dealt the same deck of cards upon their birth. And because of that, she invests heavily in women through her foundation and through the Giving Pledge, a commitment by the world's wealthiest individuals and families to dedicate the majority of their wealth to giving. Sara says this in her pledge: "I pledge to invest in women because I believe it offers one of the greatest returns on investment. While many of the world's natural resources are being depleted, one is waiting to be unleashed: women." Here's Tony and Sara.
Listen, you are a legend, and you're one of the most beautiful, humble human beings. You have such a beautiful heart. We got the chance to meet your husband, and we understand you're both forces of nature. Mother of four. But let's start back with the journey, because not everybody knows how this all came about. And I know everybody knows, you started with $5,000, Disney greeter. You were selling fax machines, as I understand, as well.
Yeah.
How do you do that to build Spanx? Tell us a little of the story. And also, if you would, I heard you said that it actually may have started when you were 16. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I will. But you call me a legend. I got to say, I've been listening to Tony Robbins for decades. Like decades. So this is like so amazing to be sitting here. You've been in my car forever.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, when it was cassette tapes, you know,
Yes.
and then I went to DVD, and I've been through the whole journey with you. Now I stream you.
That's great. Thank you. I'm touched. We actually met the first time. Warren Buffett is one of your biggest fans. Remember we were on the Today Show,
Yes.
really briefly, and then Warren Buffett we were talking backstage, and he goes, "This is why America is great." Sara is an example of the greatness of America. Somebody could start from anything and build something that changes, right? So tell us a little bit of how this came about, if you would.
Okay, so wow. My journey to becoming an entrepreneur, a lot of people talk about the soundbite in the media for 20 years has been Sara cut the feet out of her pantyhose and then Spanx is here. But it always starts way before that moment.
Yes.
And a little bit about my background is I grew up wanting to be a lawyer. Okay, my father was a trial attorney, and I used to beg him to get out of school to watch his closing arguments when I was growing up. And I'm a really bad test taker, and I basically bombed the LSAT. Not once, but twice. Wow. And so I had thought my whole life, I debated in high school, I debated in college. My major was legal communications, and then I literally bombed the LSAT. And at that point in time, I was devastated. And then I did the next logical thing. When I realized I wasn't going to be able to go to law school, I drove to Disney World and tried out to be goofy. logically, right? But you have to be 5'8" in order to be goofy, and I'm only 5'6", so I am the perfect height of a chipmunk. I worked at Disney World for 3 months, and that didn't feel like my life calling. So
Fortunately.
Then I got a job selling fax machines door to door. And I did that for 7 years. It was the only job, basically, other than Disney, that I really ever had until I started Spanx. And cold calling is tough. Okay, I did it for 7 years, 100% cold calling, no leads, 4 zip codes in Clearwater, Florida, selling fax machines. And one particular day, yeah, for all you cold callers, I bow to you. I mean, it's
yes, I agree.
that is really, really good life training. One particular day, I just was so upset. I pulled off the side of the road, and I literally said, I'm in the wrong movie. Like, call the director, call the writer, cut, this is not my life. And I went home that night to my apartment, and I wrote down in my journal, what are you good at, Sarah? What are you good at? I made a weaknesses and a strengths column. And in the strength column, I wrote sales. It's like, I know I'm good at sales. Why am I good at sales? Okay, I'm good at sales because I really like offering something to someone that they need or that might help them or might improve their life. And so in that moment, I wrote down in my journal, I'm going to invent something that I can sell to millions of people that will make them feel good.
How awesome is that? That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you made the decision.
I made the decision, and I wrote it down because I was like...
And you didn't know what it was yet.
No idea.
You just decided, what did we talk about this week, guys? Decide the outcome, you don't know the why. You know the why, you don't know the how, right? The tyranny of how. She's exactly what she did.
Exactly. I knew nothing except for that I was good at sales, and I didn't want to sell someone else's product. I thought that would be the ultimate if I could just come up with my own product and sell. Wouldn't that be amazing? And if it could help people or make them feel good, that would be even better. So I wrote that in my journal, and then I had no idea what it was going to be, Tony, but I looked up and I said out loud, universe, please give me the idea. Wow. And I was very specific. I asked for it, and I said, if you give me the idea, I will not squander it. And for 2 years later, I was still selling fax machines.
Wow.
I cut the feet out of control top pantyhose one night to wear under my white pants to go to a party in Atlanta where I was living at the time. And I came home that night and I was like, this might be my idea. Like it helped, it smoothed things out. It was a better undergarment than what I could find. And because I had set that intention 2 years prior, I think that is the main reason why I'm sitting on this couch and not the other millions of women who had been cutting the feet out of their pantyhose to solve an undergarment issue. Because women come up to me all the time and they're like, I thought of that. I did that at home too to solve that problem. But why didn't I create Spanx? And I don't usually have the time to tell them that I'd been working on manifesting and visualization and setting intentions for so long.
Yes.
That, anyway, so that's kind of what brought me to that moment. But I was really searching and wanting that. I wanted a different life for myself.
It's so beautiful because so many people have ideas, and ideas are a dime a dozen. As you said, I always talk to people, it's like, it's not even the knowledge. Knowledge isn't power. It's execution that trumps knowledge every day. So you got yourself to do that. What, first of all, when you were 16, how did that relate? Am I missing the timeline?
No, so that's good. So I like to say that Spanx really started when I was 16 years old because two things happened that were really sort of very difficult for me. One is I was riding bikes with one of my really close friends, and she was run over and killed by a car in front of me. And then very shortly after that, my parents separated, and my dad left home. And when my dad left home, he walked into my bedroom, and he said, sweetie, I wish I was your age when I discovered this instead of the age of 40. And he handed me Wayne Dyer's cassette tape series, How to Be a No Limit Person.
How to be a what person?
How to be a no limit person.
No limit person, wow.
And, you know, I think with every tragedy or every difficult obstacle, there's always a hidden blessing. There just always is. And for me, I was 16. I think most 16-year-olds would have chucked that in the bottom of my closet and been like, eh. But because I was hurting so badly, I was open and I was ready and I was needing something. So I put the cassette tapes in and I started listening to them so much that I memorized all 12 tapes front and back.
Wow.
And I started crying in my bedroom and I thought, I have just spent 16 years in school being taught what to think, but nobody has ever taught me how to think.
Yes.
And I had this epiphany of, wait, I can control the way that I think. I might be able to work on my mindset in a way that when something happens to me, I can think about it in a way that's either going to propel me forward or hold me back. Like, that's my choice. So then I became a lifelong student of it because it wasn't taught in school. And that's what led me to you and Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar. I mean, anybody I could get my hands on. And I was selling fax machines, so I was in my car for 7 years, basically. And I literally took, like, all your courses. I'm like, so that was really helpful. It was actually funny because in high school, no one ever wanted to be stuck in my car, especially after a party, because they're like, she's going to make you listen to that stuff. And then Tony, like, fast forward, I think 15, 20 years, I end up on the cover of Forbes. And all the people from my high school texted me, and they were like, damn, should have listened to that shit.
I got several things flashing through my head at once, but one's popping in. I want to hear, I know your father from what I've read, and I think the time we talked, the very first time, one of the things that came up, I forgot the question I asked you, but you mentioned that your father trained you to deal with failure, like to go out and try to fail, and rewarded for you. I think you said at the dinner table, if I remember right, you said that he would ask you what you failed at. I want to hear about that, but something popped in my head as you're doing that. I was also driven similar to you in different ways, listening and so forth. But I noticed that for your husband, death is a coach. Like there's a timeline here.
Yeah.
And I just heard death being an instrument for you, not only death of your friend, but also kind of the death of a certain life, a way you had life.
Yeah.
Is that a driving force? I know it has been for me unconsciously to squeeze every moment out of this life because you never know when you're going to go. I listened to Jesse talk about that. How much does that play a role with you? I'm just curious. Or did it play a role to initiate you?
I think it plays a really big role in my life. I like to embrace my own mortality. I like to think about it. It doesn't really scare me. It's just something that I think about often.
Yes.
And
in what way?
It fuels me, like that this is temporary, that I have one shot at life, that this is not a dress rehearsal. And so it also puts things in perspective, for me. If I get really scared, I'm like, I'm going to be dead one day. Like, no one's really going to even, it just humanizes and makes things feel not as significant.
That's beautiful. You face it rather than let some people keep it behind them.
Right.
But you've used it for urgency.
I did. And I think at 16, a lot of us go through this natural kind of, hopefully, facing our own mortality. If you go through the natural progression, maybe in your 50s, 60s, you might lose a parent, or maybe you've lost a grandparent before that. That feels a little more like on plan.
Yes.
But when you're 16 years old and you're talking to your friend about high school stuff, and then the next minute she's run over by a car, that was intense.
Yes.
And it really put a mirror up of like, whoa, wait, this is really now, and that's all you have is this moment.
That sense of urgency, that sense of hunger that doesn't go away,
right,
is something that I found is the most common denominator of the most successful people I've ever known. Intelligence, I love wickedly intelligent people. You're obviously wickedly smart, and so is your husband, but there are a lot of people wickedly smart that never maximize because they don't have that sense of urgency or a sense of a purpose or a meaning larger than themselves.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, because I also work door-to-door sales. I didn't know that about you. Tell me what you got out of door-to-door sales that helped you to succeed in business, if something did. Like, what were some of the distinctions or experiences that helped to make you successful as a business person and as an entrepreneur?
Whoa. Well, first of all, it's super humbling.
Yes.
It's really intense. Like I said, I did it for 7 years in a company. I was in an office equipment company where most people, kind of rotated out every 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think the things that it taught me the importance of differentiating myself. It taught me about what's in it for me. We'd talk about it, WIIFM, that when you get a moment with someone, they're looking for the what's in it for them. And I learned I need to deliver that in my message very quickly or I lose them.
Yes.
So it wasn't like, hey, I'm selling a fax machine. It was like, hey, I really believe I can improve your life and improve the quality of what you're doing because a business just like yours, I made it about them.
Yes.
And as soon as you can give them the benefit, do it. I used humor and the importance of humor.
And you continue to do that as part of your marketing.
Yeah, it's just not taking myself too seriously and being vulnerable. I think when you're vulnerable, oftentimes life will surprise you and people will be much kinder to you and much more willing to give you a few moments. But a lot of people think of vulnerability as weakness. And I don't.
I agree with you 100%.
I think it's a big strength.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would walk in a door and be like, okay, I just messed up. Can I redo that? And I'd walk out and come back in, and they'd be like, what's going on with this girl? But I was always kind of calling out my own, like, I'm really nervous right now, or,
Authentic.
this is my 15th call, and it's really hot outside, and, do you mind if I get a sip of water? And, things like that
Yes.
would help open the door. So, and then when you're doing this really intense selling all day, every day, cold, you learn that there's about 4 different personality types that you're selling to.
What are they?
And one is always going to click with you because it's your personality type. But if you want to improve your closing ratio, you got to kind of figure out the other 3 types. And they're called lots of different things. When I was in sales and really training it also, we called them socializers, relators, directors, and thinkers.
Yes.
And like, for example, I'm more of a socializer director, and selling to a thinker was my hardest sale, because thinkers want every piece of data and information, whether they're going to use it or not. And I'm like, this is a waste of time, And I kept losing sales to thinkers, and then finally I was like, I gotta talk to them the way they want to be talked to.
Yes.
So here's every detail, and here it is, and
Yes.
Instead of projecting my style that I liked on them.
Yes. Many of you know the DISC model. You've used the DISC model. The S and the C would be more the thinker, right? The director would be the D. The I would be that social person. So you can translate many of you based on something you already understand. But the inability to adapt makes people fail. And so you learned, you kept adapting. 7 years of it. Tell me about the role your father has played in your life. You told us one of the most important ones, how he got you to realize you could control and direct your own thinking. But let's talk about the failure thing you shared with me. Is that accurate? Is my memory accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. My dad, growing up, would actually encourage me to fail. So I would come home from school, and he would say to my brother and me, so what'd you guys fail at this week? And if I didn't have something, he would actually be disappointed. So, it flipped the whole model on its head, and I would come home from school, and I can remember I'd be like, Dad, I tried out for this, and I was horrible. And he'd be like, way to go, and he'd high-five me. And I didn't realize it at the time, but he was just changing my definition of failure.
Yes.
My definition of failure became not about the outcome, but about not trying. And so for me, going through life, my only failures are when I didn't try it because I was scared.
Yeah.
And my dad even took it a step further. He would ask us what we got, what the benefit or what positive came from it.
Oh, that's great.
So we'd be at the dinner table, and I'd be like, I failed at that. I tried out for cheerleading, and I was horrible, or I had tried for chorus. I couldn't sing at all. But then he'd always go, well, what positive came from it? And it trained our brains also to find that. And then it became like, of course I want to try these things, because you're not so focused on the outcome. I met my best friend in cheerleading tryouts. Had I not done that, so you see these moments of that, what you get out of it too, that was really cool.
How incredible for all of us as a parent to be able to deliver that. I've shared with some of you the greatest basketball coach of all time from UCLA, John Wooden. When I interviewed him and asked him, what was the best team that you had? He won 10 out of 12 national championships, and they were all new players. And if you know basketball history, almost everybody know the best team. It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a group of people, and he didn't name that team. And he named a team I'd never heard of. And I said, why were they the best? He said, because they maximized their potential. Wow. He said, the other guys had more talent. And he also teaches players. He said, I didn't want to teach them to play the game. I wanted them to play great human beings. And so his goal was, he said, you never know the score. You never know whether you won or lost by the score. Because sometimes you'll get lucky. Sometimes the ball will drop for you, or you'll get a good call. Something will go your way, and you'll have a higher score, but you didn't really win. And sometimes somebody else's higher score, they got lucky, or they got a bad call against you. He said, the only way you know you won is you left everything on that floor every moment you were there.
Yeah.
You gave your all. He said, then you know whether you won or lost, and you're in control of that. And your father taught you to come up with meanings in such a beautiful way. What an amazing shape. Is he still alive today?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, he must be so proud of you.
He is. It's really cool. He's very proud of me.
That's awesome. Well, we honor your dad.
Yeah, and my mom. My mom was amazing.
Tell us about your mom.
My mom is an artist. She was a stay-at-home mother. She's very shy. She's very, just very creative. And it was an interesting balance, the two of them. I had like a trial attorney that was a litigator that I basically was on the witness stand since birth, I had to learn to be quick on my feet,
Yes.
I did. And then my mom was just this most unbelievable nurturer.
Wow.
Like just, You know, she was the like warm blanket through the whole thing, like who I could lean on at any moment that was there. But, you know, I want to talk briefly about failure a little bit more because you talk about it so much in all the years that I've been listening to you too. But when I like to think about, because you mentioned this, that it's the number one fear is fear of failure.
Yes.
And so I like to take things a step further. I'm always like, why, till I get to the very last why I can get, because that's really where the truth always is.
Yes.
And so why is as human beings, the biggest fear failure? Well, it's because we don't want to be embarrassed, right? So it's really ultimately fear of embarrassment, which then led me to fear of what other people think of me is the real root of the issue. So that is where I spend a lot of time working myself too. I've been a student of that for since I'm 16. I've been working on not caring what other people think about me. And it took me a minute, but I realized that not caring what other people think about me doesn't have to mean I don't care about them, which is a big, important thing to recognize. But, you know, and I will practice embarrassing myself, Tony. I intentionally embarrass myself.
In what way?
I mean, I'll randomly just start singing in an elevator. And it's super embarrassing and everyone looks at me like I'm crazy, or, you know, if I notice, I will feel if it's been too long since I've been really mortally embarrassed, and then I will do it, because if you're seeking it, it loses its power over you, you know, then all of a sudden it's like, well, being embarrassed is the goal. And what I also realized by being embarrassed over and over again, it makes a great story. I mean, a lot of people will get embarrassed, and then the worst thing to do is be like, I hope no one saw that. I hope, you know, I never want to talk about that again, or whatever. I'm like, hey guys, you're not going to believe what happened to me. And I realize it's one of the best ways to connect with other humans. So they're gifts. I'm like, every time I'm embarrassed, it's such a gift. What can I do with that?
How important would you say psychology has been in this woman's path? Strong psychology and mindset.
I mean, it's kind of everything, Tony, because I've never taken a business class in my life.
Yes.
I had no contacts in the industry, and I took on billion-dollar companies with $5,000. So I would say mindset's pretty much it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But what I'm really touched by is you've not stopped growing, right? Your company hasn't stopped growing over 20 years. You continue to grow. But you keep growing, and she keeps conditioning and training, like the training never stops in her mindset. She could easily say, well, I've done these pieces, I know what to do, but you continue to do it. Plus, what the beautiful thing is, it breaks down barriers, because most people would be intimidated if they think you're some way, and when you can just be natural and open, and you share something you were truly embarrassed by, it certainly opens the door. Tell us a little bit.
Just thought of a really embarrassing moment in my business journey. Can I share it?
Sure, please.
Okay. When I was first starting Spanx, I had, you know, cold called all the department stores and been on some media here, and I decided to go over to the UK and try to launch Spanx there. And I got this moment where I got a chance to be on the BBC, and it's obviously kind of like Europe's CNN, and the guy interviewing me was like, so Sarah, tell us what Spanx can do for women in the UK. And I was like, well, it's all about the fanny. It smooths your fanny. It lifts your fanny. Okay? I had no idea, but apparently fanny means vagina in England.
I made the same mistake.
You did?
I said, get off your fannies, and I got these looks.
No way, did you really?
I did.
Oh my God, see, I don't even ever use the word fanny, but I thought it sounded very British, so I was like, it makes your fanny look smooth, and the guy like lost all the color in his face. He was just like, I had to call back my team of 2 in my apartment in Atlanta, and I was like, our international expansion is off to a great start. I just told all of England I'm going to smooth their vaginas.
Give her a hand. Mine happened in Australia the first time.
That is so funny.
Yeah, I was in Australia doing a seminar, and I said, get up off your fannies. And I got these looks like, and finally somebody whispered in my ear what I meant. So
that is hilarious. Yeah. Get up off your vagina.
Yes, exactly.
That's basically what you said to them. That's hilarious. I've never met anyone else that made that hilarious, embarrassing moment. Okay,
we share embarrassing moments.
There you go.
So tell us a little bit about how, from the time you come up with the idea, fill in the blanks for us if you don't mind. How did you go? Because again, so many people have a great idea.
Yep.
I understand why, because you declared, you were clear, the sense of urgency, all those things. Yeah. But tell us some of the mechanics. You came up with the idea. Did you know anybody in the industry? Did you start to go try to do a prototype and sell it? Tell us a little bit of the mechanics.
Okay. So I had no idea what to do next. I went on the internet. I started looking up manufacturers that made hosiery-type garments and found them in North Carolina primarily. I started calling them on the phone, and simultaneously I went to Hancock Fabrics and Michael's drugstores and was trying to hand make my own version of the prototype with like paper clips. It was really rough. And at the same time, I was trying to patent it and write my own patent and get that done. And so I was kind of doing all of those, and I was still working during the day. So I worked on Spanx at night and on the weekends for 2 years before quitting my job.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, so I mean, every step of the way, I mean, the manufacturers all hung up on me. I ended up taking a week off of work and driving there and going in person because I had learned from cold calling that, you know, in person is a better shot. They still all turned me away, but a gentleman in Charlotte, North Carolina called me 2 weeks later. And he said, quote, "Sarah, I have decided to help make your crazy idea."
Wow. What was that like for you, that moment?
I mean, I couldn't breathe. I was just so excited because all I'd been hearing was no, no, no. And when
For how long had you gotten the no's?
on and off for a year,
Wow.
a little over a year. And so when I said to him, why the change of heart? He simply said, "I have 3 daughters." And I went, okay. And he goes, "And your enthusiasm and your confidence in this idea that I still don't really understand. I ran past my daughters at dinner and they said, 'Dad, that's actually not a bad idea. We have the same issue. You might want to help this girl.'"
Wow.
And so I did that, and then I went to patent lawyers, and they all quoted me between $5 and $10 grand to write the patent. I had $5 grand and set aside in my savings from selling fax machines. So I ended up I went to Barnes & Noble and bought a book called Patents and Trademarks and wrote my own patent.
How incredible is that? Give her a hand. That's incredible. That's so awesome.
Thank you. But I got to say, I'm not a lawyer because remember I bombed the LSAT, so I had no idea how to write the legal part of it. I did the background, the abstract. My mom's an artist. She drew a picture of me standing in the living room in Just Spanx, which is actually the image on the patent in the patent office. And so I did all of that, went back to the lawyers, and I said to one of the lawyers, I said, "I've done all the legwork. Will you just write the claims for a discounted price?" And he agreed to do it for $750.
Wow.
And he later admitted to me, he goes, "Sarah, I thought when you first came to me that your idea was so bad that I thought I was being pranked by my friends." He goes, "I thought you'd been sent by Candid Camera," which makes perfect sense because as I was pitching to him how I was going to change the world with my footless pantyhose and like pulled him out of my red backpack, he was looking around the room. He was looking for hidden cameras.
Being punked.
Yeah, he thought his friends were punking him. But, you know, he helped me, and then, you know, I made the packaging on my friend's computer every day after work. She had just graduated from art school, and I had a pretty clear vision of how I wanted my package to look really different. Because if you get a chance to be on the shelf and you have no money to advertise, your package needs to do the selling. And so I knew that. I also wanted my package to feel like a gift. The woman was buying herself for so long. Hosiery had been like a commodity we hated buying.
Yes.
It's always like beige, gray, and white, and the same half-naked woman on every package. And I was like, I made mine red. I put cartoon women on there. Everyone told me I wasn't going to be able to sell one pair with cartoon women because you couldn't see the product, but I wanted diversity. And I did 3 very different looking cartoon women on the front of my package. And, you know, I have no idea how to make a package. So right before I was finished with making it to go to market, I was like, well, there might need to be something on here for legal reasons. I don't know. So I went to the store, I went to Bloomingdale's, and I bought 10 different brands, and I laid them all over the floor of my apartment. And if the same thing was on all 10, I was like, must be legal. So I added it.
That's great.
I was like, okay. I added care instructions and, you know, certain things. But I mean, I didn't know how it was supposed to be done, which is a big gift.
Yes. Tell us, how did you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I was just going to say, you know, when you don't know how it's supposed to be done, that means you're going to do it differently. My husband mentioned that, but I really do believe that. But this is why most people don't do it without the expertise, the self-doubt,
Yes.
the talk track.
How did you deal with that?
You. I'm serious. I've been working on my negative self-talk and my talk track by listening to these, you know, this positive messaging. And being a student of this, that it really helped me because why would I? I mean, I'm someone, I had no idea how any of this was supposed to be done. I still don't. But, so I feel like I wish more people out there that don't know how it's supposed to be done would trust that and do that, because that's where that's what moves life and society forward. That's where change happens. Because if you do it like everybody else, it's not change. It's not innovation.
A quick message from our Business Mastery team. If you run a company, whether it be as a first-time entrepreneur or a seasoned CEO, you face challenges every day. And for many of you, you're doing it alone. For more than 40 years, Tony Robbins has helped business owners like yourself understand how successful your business could be, the level it's at today, and how to close that gap faster and with fewer costly mistakes along the way. And now he would like to underwrite the cost of a free one-to-one business strategy session from one of his top business coaches, a $600 value. In this session, you'll learn how Tony's business systems can impact your company. See, what most people don't know is that when Tony acquires or starts a company, he brings in 6 systems that are proven to create monumental growth, up to 300% in the first year alone. He teaches these systems at his business seminar and also offers a program where his experts will come to you to train your entire team. To learn more about his systems, get business owner resources, and to claim your free session, just go to tonyrobbins.com/CEO. That's tonyrobbins.com/CEO. Now let's get back to the interview.
So once you get this man on board who's going to manufacture for you, and you got your patent, did you go, I know at some point you got to Neiman Marcus and Oprah, but what's kind of the sequence? When did you have your first breakthrough after actually getting somebody to believe in it and get the legal done? Did you go out and call on department stores?
I did. I called on Neiman's.
That was the first place you went?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what this goes to not knowing how it's supposed to be done and how it can work in your favor, but I called Neiman Marcus. I looked him up in the yellow pages, and I called the one in Atlanta where I lived, and I said, "Hi, this is Sara. I've invented something." And the lady started laughing at me. She goes, "Well, we have a buying office, and it's in Dallas, so you should call there." And I said, "Okay." And I learned from my cold calling days not to leave a message, so I called for, I think it was 3 to 5 days before the hosiery buyer ever picked up. I never left a message. I just kept hanging up, and all day at odd times I'd try her. Finally, she answered, and I just said, "Hi, this is Sara Blakely, and I've invented something that's going to change the way your customers wear clothes and help all your salespeople sell more."
Oh, what a great benefit. Boy, you're training to get your message out immediately.
Yeah.
Right? You had to.
And she was like, "Okay, mail it to me." And I was like, "I can't mail it to you. I have to come in person." And we went back and forth on that. And I said, "Look, you got nothing to lose. You can kick me out after 10 minutes. Just let me fly there." And she said, "If you're willing to fly here, I'll give you 10 minutes.
Wow.
And I got on a plane, and I had my lucky red backpack from college, which literally, it is lucky. And my friends begged me not to take it, Tony. They were like, "Sara, no. You're going to the Neiman Marcus headquarters. Do not bring that old, dirty red backpack." And they were like, "Buy a Prada bag, return it the next day, like whatever you need to do." And I was like, "No, I got to bring it. It's good luck." So I flew there. I'm sitting with this lady that is perfect. I mean, her dress matched her pen, matched her shoes, right? And I'm sitting there with my red backpack from college, an East Pack, and I had my prototype in a Ziploc bag from my kitchen, and I had a color copy of the packaging. And 5 minutes into my pitch, I was losing her. I mean, I think nonverbals are more important than verbal, and I had learned that in sales. I pay attention to the nonverbal. So, so many times I'd be selling my fax machine, and someone would go, "I love it. It's great, and I'm going to call you tomorrow." And I'd be like, "Oh, God." And I would even say to them, "You know what? You're shaking your head no, but you're telling me yes. That's a little concerning. Can you really be honest with me? What's the big issue?" And then they'd be like, "Blah." And then I'd get one last chance to be able. So anyway, her nonverbals were clear as day. I was like, "Oh, God." So I just randomly, I said, "Diane, will you come to the bathroom with me?" She's like,
talk about breaking her pattern.
She's like, "Excuse me?" I said, "I know it's a little weird, but will you come to the bathroom with me? I'm going to show you my product on and not on." And I went into the stall, and I showed her under white pants without Spanx. And then I put them on, and I came out, and I showed her with Spanx. And she immediately went, "I get it. It's brilliant, and I'm going to try it in 7 stores." And I was like, "Yes!"
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So when they put them into Neiman Marcus, did they take off right away, or did you have to do some of the former marketing?
Well, they did, but I had a little something to do with that.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah, so she said, I'm going to try them in 7 stores, which was amazing. And I immediately called everyone I knew in those 7 cities, and I paid them to buy Spanx.
You and Jesse are twin souls. I can see that for sure.
I totally paid people to buy Spanx. I was like, hi, it's Sarah. We sat next to each other in 4th grade. I know I haven't talked to you since, but I created this product called Spanx. I'll mail you a check. Go in, tell the salesperson you've been looking for it for your whole life. And and I literally bought up a lot of my product. And, the Neiman's buyer called me, and she's like, we are selling out. I was like, no kidding. I can't believe it. And then just as I was running out of money, Oprah called, and that was like, I got a chance to be one of Oprah's favorite things, which was
oh my gosh,
amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. And
you were running out of cash.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, but I wanted to say something also about the not knowing how it's supposed to be done. So after I got into Neiman's, all of these people in the industry came up to me and they're like, how in the world did you land Neiman's? And I would look at them and I go, I called them. I'm not even kidding. And we would just stare at each other. They'd be like, what do you mean you called them? I'm like, I called them. Why? What do you do? They're like, I go to trade shows, and I've been setting up a booth for the last 6 years, and everyone says that around year 6 or 7, Neiman's comes to your booth. And I was like, I didn't even know there were trade shows. So there's so much
incredible.
to be said. That one example, I think, is so telling about trusting, not knowing how it's supposed to be done.
Yes. So you go on Oprah at that critical time. Obviously, we get a sense of what happened there. But you decided early on, if I remember reading correctly, that you weren't going to do traditional advertising, maybe partially because of economics, but that you were using word of mouth. But also, you really one of the early people using influencers. I mean, now everybody does that now. They think of Instagram and social media, but you didn't have it in those days. Why did you make that choice? And how did you make that choice? What did you decide to do around marketing? What was your philosophy around marketing at those early days? And how does it affect you still today?
So you're right that I made the choice for budget, initially. And then when I saw how effective it was and how authentic it felt,
yes,
then I didn't change it even when I had the budget to do it. So Spanx became a household name and a global brand without ever advertising for the first 16 years of business.
Well, let's have a hand for that. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. So thank you. So for 16 years, we didn't do any formal advertising. And I basically sat in my apartment and said, what is the most effective way for me to get awareness, brand awareness, for no money? And I just wrote all of the ideas down. I was like, send product to people like Oprah, call every radio station in America, call all the editors of every fashion magazine. I went to the store and I bought every fashion magazine and I circled names in the front, and I just did it like that. And then after maybe 4 to 6 months, I ended up hiring someone to do that had no experience in it either.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they didn't know what they
All
couldn't
my
do.
first employees had no experience in what they were doing.
How did you pick your first employees? What was your criteria?
Well, I like to say as soon as you can afford to, hire your weaknesses. And I knew when you're an entrepreneur, you know what your weaknesses are. It's usually what you don't enjoy, too. So it became pretty clear to me that I wasn't good at operations, that I wasn't good at the accounting and the inventory side of the business. And so my first employee was an operator. And he was my boyfriend at the time. And he was a healthcare consultant. So naturally, I was like, come, help me. This makes perfect sense. And then my second employee was someone who did PR. And she was a neighbor who I had given a free sample to. And we walked to get a bagel together. And she told me the whole walk there and the whole walk back why she loved it. And at the end of it, I was like, will you be my head of PR? Like, will you take this list of all these people and the radio DJs and everyone I'm trying to get? And she said, absolutely. And then my third hire was an assistant to help me book all my travel and hotel and stuff. And after about 2.5, 3 weeks, she became my head of product.
Wow.
Because I turned to her and I was like, do you want to be my head of product? She's like, I don't know anything about shapewear or hosiery. I'm like, I don't either. Perfect. And she came and she's still to this day, 20 years later, we're 20 years old this year. Spanx started in 2000. So she's had a product. She had no idea she has this unbelievable gift. And so she figured it out. She kind of became an extension of me in product. I would dream up ideas, and then she's really good at solving the problems and figuring them out, because Spanx holds many, many patents, and a lot of what we've done has never been done before, which is my favorite place to play. Yeah. And excuse me. So, yeah, she's still at the company. Those were my first 3 hires, because in the beginning, I'm just going to tell you what was going through my mind over and over again. Make it, sell it, build awareness. I didn't think of anything else. There wasn't really another thought that came into my mind. I was like, make it, sell it, build awareness. Make it, sell it, build awareness. And I only ever bought or spent what I had orders for already, or what I knew I could sell. And so the sales funded it, and that's just the way I chose to do it. I never really...
It's exciting, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I never really changed up that model. So make it, sell it, build awareness, really. Because I think a lot of times it's very easy to get distracted on things that aren't really going to give you that return on investment.
Plus, it keeps it simple, and complexity is the enemy of execution, right? You kept it simple, everybody could be focused. I've heard you say, some of your advice often is start small, think big, and scale quickly.
Yeah.
Tell us what that means to you.
I mean, it really means, well, now that I've been doing this 20 years, I kind of realized that a lot of people want to start big. And I was totally cool with not starting big. I was like, I'm going to start small. I'm going to learn. I'm going to listen to the customer. What does she like or not like about the product before I iterate the next one? And but I also was scaling fast and building awareness, because I wanted people to know I was the first to market. I knew competition was going to come in. It's always coming in. I mean, it's literally like walking through a land field or something. I mean, people were knocking me off directly in every which way. And so, but I believe in starting small and being okay with that. I've seen a lot of people that are like, raising $40 million and $100 million for marketing budgets and big ad campaigns and things right out of the gate. And
marketing never makes up for a product that isn't superior, and it doesn't make up for raving fan clients. That's what always goes like this, especially today.
Product is king.
Yeah.
Product is king. I care so much about product. I'm like, you can have the best marketing in the world. People will buy your product once if it's not great.
Yeah.
And you should always be asking yourself, why am I different? Why am I different? Why is my product different? Why is my product better? If you can't answer it, your customer's not going to be able to answer it. And if you can't answer it, spend more time in that bucket of your business. Like, how can I make it better? What can I do? And then the same with you personally. Why am I better? Why am I better than, what is it? What's my unique thing that I offer the world?
You've grown for 20 years. I mean, explosive growth. You still own the entire company, correct?
Yeah.
No outside capital, no outside investors. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? It's just extraordinary.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Tell me, you started, I'm a man, so I don't fully understand your product line, but I do understand that you've continued to expand the product line. How did you know when to expand? Sometimes people expand too many things too quickly. How did you decide, and what's your advice to people when they're, adding to their product line? When should they? How do they know they should or shouldn't at that stage?
It's a great question. So for a long time, Spanx only focused on shapewear, and there's positives and negatives to that. I think you have to really kind of go off instinct in your own businesses. But I like to be known for something and be the best at something before I start really expanding my line. And then whenever I expand into a new category of product, I want a hero. I need a hero that I usually launch with. And depending on the hero, I might want it to be the only product that enters that category for a year, maybe less, maybe more, and anchor in that, and then add on to it. And the hero is usually something that's...
Can you give us an example of one of the first new products you created with the hero?
Yes. Well, like recently, we went into apparel, right? And I wanted to create the perfect black pant. Like the perfect black pant. It's just easy to, like, washable, dress up, dress down, makes you look amazing in it. And so we did just one black pant, and that gave our customers a chance to really anchor in like, wow, Spanx is making this now. And then we added other silhouettes.
Interesting.
So instead of just, doing it all at once. And, another product that we just created is something called arm tights. And it's hosiery for your arms.
Wow.
And so I like to just look at things. I own a bunch of sleeveless things, sleeveless dresses, sleeveless tops that I want to wear year round. But I can't, because of the weather. So I thought, well, we wear hosiery and tights on our legs in the fall and in the winter. Why not on our arms? So I created this little crop top made on a hosiery machine. The arms, you put it on, it comes to right here below your bra, and the arms come to here, and they come in all different colors and patterns and prints, and they completely extend your wardrobe. And now, for $30, this item allows women to really play, stylist in her own wardrobe and change up outfits that have looked the same for a long time. But that's the way my brain works. Like, I'll just be looking at tights one day on the legs and be like, why aren't there tights for the arms? Why are there only tights for the legs? I've got a whole upper body. I've got, it's the same way that, in the winter and in the fall for a lot of women, you want to wear dresses, but you don't want bare legs. I thought the same thing about my sleeveless dresses and tops.
You got the blue ocean strategy, create new categories. That really gives you a geometric advantage if you can pull it off, which you've done successfully, and you also have so much trust. How have you built so much trust with your clients? I always tell people, don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with your clients, because products and services need to change, but if you fall in love with them, you can serve them. How have you built such trust? How have you built such a brand over the years? What do you think it is that you deliver? And what's your philosophy on marketing? Because there's a great deal of humor in it that I see, and just authenticity and warmness. How do you translate that when a company becomes as big as you are?
I think, I've always been really honest with her, and I've always been really direct, and I talk to her the way that I would talk to her if I ran into her instead of like through a marketing spin sitting in a conference room. So I feel like that. I've also been very vulnerable as the founder and the owner. I mean, from the very beginning, Tony, I was standing in Neiman's. Like, once I landed the Neiman's order, a lot of entrepreneurs might think I've arrived, I landed Neiman's. I was like, this is my chance, and I will not have this work. So I took 2 years and stood in every Neiman's in the country, and then all the other Nordstrom, Saks, and sold the product for them to their customers.
Wow. So they had a personal relationship with you.
Yeah. But I mean, I just looked at the landscape. I was like, okay, they're going to put me in the sleepiest corner of the store where nobody goes, and a sales associate who's making $10 or $12 an hour is in charge of my fate. I was like, I don't think so. I do not think so. So I literally, the store didn't ask me to. I did what are called Spanx Days, and I stood there all day. I would go at 8:30 in the morning. I would do a morning rally for all of the sales associates before the store opened. And I had to really hustle because the rule was you really only do it to the department that you're selling in. But I knew like those 3 hosiery sales reps wasn't really gonna make the biggest impact for me being there. So I would run around and beg the women that sold couture and the women that sold makeup and the women in men in shoes. I gave free product away. I was like, I'm gonna give free product away. I was like, there's a contest. I just, whatever I could do to get them to attend my morning meeting. And I did this, and then I stood for, 7 to 8 hours a day and sold Spanx out of the hosiery department in the entrance of of Neiman's, without permission, which is a big key. Neiman's is really uptight about their visual, and I went to Target when I did this at the time, and I bought those things that go on your desk that hold envelopes, like an envelope holder, and I put them at every single register in Neiman's and threw 3 pair of Spanx or 4 pair of Spanx, and it would just walk away. And I just remember somebody asking me, do you have approval for this? I was like, absolutely. But then what happened was everybody thought somebody else had approved it. They didn't realize no one had approved it. So I was trying to get Spanx out of the corner of the store that I knew it wasn't going to sell in. I was like, this is my biggest challenge. Well, had I not gone to the place that it was being sold, I probably wouldn't have recognized that's really my biggest objection, is that the women that are wearing great dresses and slacks and aren't going even to the hosiery department won't know this is there. So I had to break a lot of rules to get it done. And then by the time that they realized no one had approved it, the CEO at the time, Bert Tansky, said, they saw what the sales were doing on this $20 item, and he said, whatever this girl's doing, let her keep doing it.
How many years did you do that for?
For 2.
For 2 years. You ever have that? Incredible. We live in a world where people read about somebody in the tech business or something hitting a home run in 2 years, making $1 billion, and it deludes people because 95% of businesses in the world, well, only 5% ever even do $1 million gross, and so I think people beat themselves up. And they think somebody got lucky, or I think a lot of people think you got on Oprah and that was the game. So I'm so grateful you're sharing this. I mean, you think of the details she thought through to give people an experience, not just tell them about it, and doing whatever it took. I mean, it's amazing.
I literally did whatever it took to succeed. When I tell you this, I got a lot of rejection standing there. I mean, not everybody was always happy for me to be like, hey, check this out. But I took a picture of my, own butt. I laminated it in before and after, and I stood there and showed people this my butt with a panty line and cellulite on it under white pants, and I'd be like, this is me, look, this is before and this is after, and people were like, but I also think that vulnerability, so many people said to me I don't know that you should be the before and after butt model as the founder. And I'm like, but I need this product. This is the whole why. And, so I just was connecting with people that way. But what else happened is I built a sales force that wasn't on my payroll because every store that I hit became an advocate for me and my brand. They were rooting for me. And I had spent that whole day there getting to know them and selling them on why this was such a great product. But I wouldn't leave a store without talking to every employee, including the ladies that did gift wrap. I would run back to gift wrap and be like, hi, I'm Sara. Here's my pitch. I know you're going to love it. It's just I didn't want to leave one stone unturned, especially if I had taken the time to fly there and go there because it was expensive. Yes. And I told my team back home one time, Tony, I was like, I'm going to California, and because the flights are really expensive, I land in San Diego, and 21 days later, I leave out of San Francisco, and I'm hitting every store between San Diego and San Francisco.
That's extraordinary.
And I had MapQuest at the time, and I was freaking out. I didn't know where I was half the time. And I did every single day, including Sundays, for 21 days.
Wow.
And my feet were blisters everywhere. Because, at Neiman's, I couldn't wear, I had to look the part. So I was in really high heels and trying to be in a cute outfit for those ladies. And I got on the plane after 21 days in San Francisco. And I sat on the plane, and the guy next to me is like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, "Wah!" I just started bawling. I just bawled and bawled the whole flight back. He was like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine, just a little tired. So anyway, but the Oprah was amazing, but I had to sell it myself too.
Yes. I've always talked about, people that in their business don't usually maximize it because they get excited initially and then it doesn't work out the way they want. And there was a guy named Mel Fisher that I usually share with the group here who, went for 16 years looking for a gold treasure, true story, and he found it. You may remember.
Yes.
He found it, but he went 15 years with not a single gold coin.
Right.
He lost members of his team who died on trips. To be able to keep going and doing that. So, the three beliefs are, that aspect of, I got to believe the treasure's out there. If you don't certain the treasure's out there, you're not going to find it. And I got to believe I'm going to find it, and I got to know it's worth it, which comes back to one word, why. And so for you to drive that hard, pretty strong why. What's your why? And I think, when I've heard you talking with people, I know you bring that up. It is for me too. It's people don't have to know the how if they got a strong enough what they're after and why.
Right.
What was the why for you? And what's the why today?
So my why is all about the opportunity of being a woman born in the right country at the right time, which I had nothing to do with. That's just pure
grace,
luck.
Yes.
And I looked at my mom and my grandmothers, and I saw their limited choices, and they inspired me. Their limited choices inspired me. My mom is 22 years older than me. That is the smallest amount of time when you think about the scheme of how long human beings have been on this planet. By 22 years, I made it that my options were, I could fulfill my own dreams and potential. So my why was very much, I feel like I was doing this for not to squander the opportunity that was given to me. It's just something I have felt since I was a little girl. I'm not sure if I brought it into this lifetime or where it came from, because it just has always been there. And then I just was, for all the women that still don't have this opportunity. So a lot of people ask me also how you handle self-doubt. Self-doubt is, constantly positive messaging from people like Tony and, Wayne Dyer and these amazing souls that have been out there giving us these positive messages. But it's also when you can do something that's bigger than yourself,
Yes.
the self-doubt becomes a lot smaller.
That's right. 'Cause it's not about you anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it's all about you, if it's only about you, it's a lot easier to be like, I don't want to make that call today, whatever, or I'm too scared to go through the door at Neiman's. But when I'm going through the door at Neiman's on behalf of all the women that came before me that didn't have this chance and all the women on the planet who still don't, I could be crying in the car and shaking. I'm going through the door. And so it gets me emotional talking about it now.
Sarah, you're an amazing soul, but the most amazing thing is you show other people that anyone can tap who they are. And it's like you've attended this week, isn't it? You've lived all the things I've been trying to teach everybody. You're bringing them up, which is the most important thing, is to find something you care about more than yourself.
Yeah.
Because business is a spiritual game. It's all about how can you do more for others than anybody else, but you only do so much for yourself. So you found that, and it's beautiful, and you haven't lost it over 20 years. That's what's really special.
And, I had somebody ask me, like, how do you find something that you're that passionate about? And one of the things that I like to just tell people, it's just a simple little litmus test of it, is like, what makes you cry? Whatever makes you cry or what makes you feel really sad, that's it, there it is. And there's always a way, no matter what your business is, if it's financial, if it's this, if it's that, there's always a way to tie it into something that means more to you than the business. Of course, the customer means everything to you. You ask me why I'm still doing this 20 years later. I care so much about the woman. And I also, not only when I was trying to solve an undergarment issue for myself, I stood on the floors of these manufacturing plants in North Carolina, and I realized there weren't any women in the room. And I was like, wow, and it didn't really seem like they were caring, the industry was caring about how we felt. And so I stood on the floor that day, and I remember saying to myself, like, I'll be that person. I'll be the girl that cares about how the women feel in these things. And so, that's been the lens for me at Spanx. And there's still so much left to make that I can make better for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm tearing up myself because my is seeing people break through, seeing people claim their truth and serve something larger than yourself, and you're such a beautiful model of that. I wanted you to come here, too, because women do everything today. We had a conversation earlier this week about if you don't admire and respect the feminine, including women sometimes who don't, because they think masculine is more powerful.
Yeah.
They forget that no one on this earth made it without making it through a woman who had the courage to bring life through them, much less, I see so many women work all day long in their business and come home and raise their kids and take care of husbands or wives or whoever they're with, and women are extraordinary. And yet I see so many women that think power is in masculine. And we all have it. I have feminine in me. I'm sitting here tearing up with you. I have masculine in me. We all have it. But sometimes we try to be something we're different than because the culture reinforces it. And you are the most successful, arguably maybe in the world, but certainly in our country, female entrepreneur in terms of results, short period of time impact. And yet your feminine is so alive. Your vulnerability is so alive. What can you say to the women in this room who think they have to become masculine to achieve things as opposed to just using all of themselves, masculine and feminine? What's your philosophy, and what do you want other female entrepreneurs to know about this, that they don't have to give up who they are in some way?
That was actually a really conscious decision I made early on. And, business has been a very masculine construct, okay? And I'm so happy to hear you talk about the energy, because I talk about this. I have a foundation, and I talk about my greater mission is to elevate the feminine on the planet, but I believe that it's the masculine and feminine energy on the planet that needs to be in balance, that the feminine has been squashed for like 3,000 years, for a while, and we all have masculine and feminine in us. I know CEOs that are very balanced in their feminine, like Hamdi from Chobani comes to mind. He's got that. Richard Branson's got that. And then women, we have the masculine and feminine. So I really am in search of the balance. But when I first started Spanx, I was maybe a month into it, and I had been written up in the local paper in Atlanta, and I was at a cocktail party, and 3 men came up to me, and they go, Sara, we read about you. You invented something. That's great. And I said, yeah, I did. I'm so excited. And one guy pat me on the shoulder, and he goes, Sara, business is war. And the other guys kind of laughed and looked at each other, and they go, yep, business is war. And then they walked away, and I went home into my apartment, and I sat on the floor of my apartment, and I actually started to cry. And I remember saying to myself, why does it have to be war? I don't want it to be war. That's not my script. And I'm going to go about this in a very different way and just see what happens. And I honored the feminine through the whole journey.
I know you do.
And
that's the number one reason I wanted you to be here, honestly.
Really?
Yes, because I see so many women also, I think there has been injustice. There's immature masculine is squashed feminine. One is trying to control. Mature masculine wants to love and serve. And so I think so some women try to become what they think is masculine, and they model the very thing that they dislike. And you have not done that. What is your metaphor for business? I think of it as a spiritual game. How do you add more value? What is your metaphor for business?
Oh, wow. I've never thought about a metaphor for it, but I mean, it's this just beautiful unfolding journey.
Yes, a journey. That's beautiful.
It's just a beautiful journey. And, I will say, Tony, about a lot of the women, I recognize that a lot of the women that came before me had to act like men.
Yes, I
and
agree.
had to try to look like men to even get the chance to have their foot in the door.
Yes.
And so, I'm thrilled that I'm in a place in time where the men and the women are honoring and respecting the feminine. And I do believe the feminine is very powerful. And to your point, I'm very grateful for the masculine in me.
Yes.
Masculine in me has made a huge difference in my life. But I didn't want to downplay the feminine in rooms full of people that had kind of lost their way of the feminine and I'm happy that now in business, I think a lot of men and women are really embracing the feminine. I mean, it's the balance, I lead my business with vulnerability, empathy, intuition. I mean, I'm in a business group with, I joined YEO when I first started Spanx, because one thing that happens when we're entrepreneurs is one day we become a boss. I was selling fax machines, complaining about the boss. I had all this camaraderie bitching about the boss. And then one day I was like, oh my God, I'm the boss, And I had no peers and no one to talk to. And I had these people sitting in my apartment going, like, you're the boss, what are we going to do? And I'd never even had a manager, really, that I had learned from when I was in this role of entrepreneur and now boss. And so I joined this group, which I recommend if you have any way to find people that are like you and going through what you're going through, which is wonderful while you're at this seminar, because I'm sure you're all making great friends, and these are all like-minded people. I joined a group called YEO, Young Entrepreneur Organization. It's a national organization. They put you in a forum. I was in a forum with 10 guys. I'm the only girl. I've met with these 10 guys every month for 18 years, and now they're like my brothers. I mean, I say I feel like I'm Jane Goodall, but, instead of observing gorillas in the wild, I get to observe men in their natural habitat because they forget I'm there. I'm always like, wow, this is so interesting. And I go on vacation with them once a year, these 10 guys. Anyway, for the first 4 years, they all were placing bets how long I was going to last in business. I didn't know that. They've now admitted that to me. But you can imagine, I go in there, they're like, what's your business plan? I'm like, I don't have one. They're like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to talk to the universe about this. Literally, I would say these things. And then they'd be like, well, how are you going to make that happen? I'm like, I'm going to manifest it. Give me a minute. I'll manifest it. These guys were like, woohoo. And then Tony, 4 years into it, they start seeing she's not really going away and her business is kind of doing great. So what's going on here? And one by one, they don't know this, but one by one, each one of them have pulled me aside. And each of them have said to me, so Sara, how do you talk to the universe?
I think honoring the male and female in all of us is the real secret, isn't it? Integrating,
Totally.
being an integrated human being,
Yes.
finding what your lead system is, but honoring both parts and honoring other people as well. There's some questions from our audience.
Okay,
want a while. Are
perfect.
you okay with that?
Yeah,
Just a few?
sure.
She wanted to have a few in advance, so if I call your name, you can stand up, but we're going to, for time's sake, read your question. So Amanda Marie asks, what would you do differently if you could jump into a time machine and do it all again? Amanda Marie, and let's stand up if you're around there somewhere.
Amanda, okay. Amanda, it's a great question. I like where I'm sitting, so I wouldn't do a whole lot different, but I would say that, if I could do it over again, there were periods of time at Spanx where I stopped playing in my lane. And I'm a product person. I'm an inventor. I like the sales, the marketing, and the product side of it. And a period of time, what I think happens to a lot of business owners is as the business started to grow, I got removed away from that. I didn't even really realize it was happening. And then I spent all day, every day just dealing with business problems. Like there was this organization around me, and when things were bad enough, they bubbled up to me. And so all day, every day, I was dealing with like really, bad crisis stuff, which happens daily in business. And I became really unhappy. And I didn't know why, and I was feeling super burned out. And I realized, wait, I am really far removed from the thing that got me the most excited and jazzed about doing this. So I wasn't the CEO of Spanx for a period of time. And about 4 years ago, I stepped back in as the CEO. And when I stepped back in as the CEO, more day to day, I said, I'm basically going to be very close to product. And I meet with product every week. I'm in the fit room. I try every product on, and I couldn't be happier. I still deal with the problems, but it's not the only thing I do anymore. I get to stay close to your love.
Beautiful.
As the business grows.
That's awesome. Perfect. Henry Villa says, how do you grow a company the size of Spanx with no outside capital or external investment? You kind of answered that a little bit, but maybe if there's anything else you'd add to that?
Where's Henry?
And may I ask, I don't know if it's a private company, can't mention, what's the size of the company today, or the number of products or people, or give people a sense without getting into your private business?
I mean, we have like over 200, we have probably between 200 and 400 products.
Wow.
We're all over the world. And, it's just been really an awesome journey. So, but Henry, I think I saw you over here. Yeah, hey, Henry. The question's, how did I do this with just $5,000?
Yeah, with no outside capital or any external investment by anyone else.
Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit about it, but I was willing to start small, and I only ever invested in the sales that were coming in. That was just what was comfortable for me. And I've never really had a strong need to go to outside funding. So that's really how that happened. And I worked really, really, really hard. Really hard.
So many things other people would have hired someone to do, you did, or you bootstrapped.
And it's 20 years into this, and someone will bring me something, and I'll be like, can we do this ourselves? Like, what? Because what I have found most of the time, it's very seductive to start to say, we can afford the experts.
Yes.
You start to bring in the experts, like the marketing experts come, and then these people come, and, I have found that oftentimes, even when you have the money to afford all of that, you get the best results when you kind of bootstrap it. And I'm always looking for that authentic thread, too. I think if things are too perfect and too polished, sometimes you can feel a little disconnected from consumers and each other. So I've never been that worried about fumbling my way through it and being able to laugh about it. So I think that's it. But I'm very grateful that I own my company and 100%. That I made those choices.
Give her hands, beautiful. Milo Carbera, hope I'm pronouncing. She says, female to female, can you tell us about your daily habits, particularly how you manage to keep your health and beauty routines up while running a billion-dollar empire? What is your philosophy concerning scheduling me time? Any additional advice for female CEOs in a tough time keeping up, who are having a tough time keeping up?
I like this woman because she was asked to ask one question,
and she managed to get five.
Talk about maximizing your opportunity, girlfriend. I love that. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to answer all of them, but I would say, I haven't always done it right, and I haven't always put myself first. And there are times in the business where I can put myself more first, and times where I do take a back seat. In the beginning, I really took a back seat. I mean, I worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for probably about 4 years. And my headquarters was my apartment for the first 2 years, so it was really hard to separate myself from that. But this past year in 19, believe it or not, I went to my team and I said to them, every year I say I'm going to work out, and every year I say I'm going to make time for it, and I haven't done it. in years and years, ever. So this year I'm gonna say, I'm gonna make time to work, and here's the hour that I'm gonna work out every single day, and everything else has to fall around it. And just me declaring that, it's happened. So for all of 19 was the first year in my whole Spanx journey that I worked out every day.
I am, but that's awesome.
So I was very proud of that. And then one thing I did that really helped me was I bucketed my days. So I realized I cannot believe how long this took me to figure out. But as an entrepreneur, we're wearing every hat. We're almost every department. So in one day, I'm like sitting in a meeting and they're asking me about a bra, and I'm like wearing the bra and giving feedback. And then 5 minutes later, I have a legal issue and I'm sitting with my lawyers and they're talking to me about something. And then, an hour later, I'm in an employee situation and trying to help solve an employee crisis. And then, 20 minutes later, my kid's school calls. And I would come home every day and be exhausted and feel like I got nothing done and a bunch of arrows were being shot at me. And that's all I felt. I was just come home and be like, and I had like monkey brain. So what happened was I wasn't allowing myself to have enough time for context. So I felt like I was making bad decisions. I was frustrated a lot of the time. An example would be my team would come in and go, Sarah, do you like the blue package or the red package? Or, the green package and the purple package? I'd be like, purple. And then, it launches next to a competitor that's purple. And I'm like, what? Like, I never would have picked purple if I'm seeing that we're in a scene, and they're like, well, and I was, I'd be frustrated they didn't tell me that. They'd be frustrated I didn't ask the question. So now what I do is I have themed days.
It's great.
It's not always
Chunky.
perfect.
RPM.
Yeah, it's not always perfect, but Mondays, I work from home. Tuesdays, I know that I'm marketing brand and all things dealing with the brand. Wednesday, I meet with all my leaders and I do visioning for the company. Thursday is my product day. I only work on product. Friday's a swing day for me too now. I may work at home, I may come into the office. But Friday and Monday is when I try to allocate time for myself to think. Thinking is super critical and spending that time doing that. So that made a huge difference because now the whole company knows, like they can plan and be like, Tuesdays when Sarah's thinking about this and I meet with the right people. And
it allows
wow,
you also to
made a
put
difference.
concentration of power into one category instead of being scattered, right? So it's huge.
Yeah.
We
And
teach a process of RPM, which is getting your life that way and scheduling it that way. So that's incredibly powerful.
So all of those helped me a lot. And, I've recognized my best time to think is in the car. Every single person here in the room has their best place or time to think. And I'm not talking about when you go through your checklist of like, I gotta, do that and that and that. I'm talking about where does your mind wander? Where does your mind wander? And how much time do you need to allocate alone before your mind wanders? Because when your mind wanders is where all the magic is. And so for Einstein, it was when he was shaving. He'd get all his best ideas. For me, it's in the car. So I live about 5 minutes from Spanx, but I have created what my friends call my fake commute. And I get in the car and I drive an hour before Spanx. I'll drive aimlessly around town thinking. And I show up, I show up at the office and I'm like, thank God, I got that time. But I actually had to schedule it because I live so close to the office. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Lua Kayab, is that, am I pronouncing your name properly? Here we go. She said, what was the scariest challenge you had in your business and how did you handle it and keep going? What did you tell yourself the first morning you woke up that Spanx was officially a business?
What was the scariest part of my business?
Scariest time, and how'd you get through it?
The scariest time.
How'd you get through it?
I think the scariest, I've had so many scary times in my business, but I think the scariest time in my business is when I stopped honoring my lane in the business and I had the wrong leader in the business and I lost my way a little bit during that time. As a woman, I was also trying to grow my family, so I had a lot of other things happening in my personal life that was hard and complicated, but I would say that was my hardest time, and how I fixed it was I got up the courage to just reclaim it and go back in, and I was terrified, but I stepped back in as CEO, which I hadn't been in a long time, and I was willing to set the rules the way that I felt was going to be best for me and the business, and wasn't as worried about hurting feelings or who might be upset about it, and let the chips fall where they may, and it all has been a beautiful thing for the company and for me. So I would say that was probably a scary time. And then, what was the other question?
The second one was, what did you tell yourself the first morning you woke up that Spanx is officially a business?
Oh my God. I'm still waking up and I'm like, is it a business? I would say, I was just like, the moment that I actually felt like I was a business was when I had first launched the footless pantyhose, and I had been Oprah's favorite thing, and I'd been selling that one product for a year and a half. And I invented my second product, which was the first ever shaper short that had no leg band on it, but it stayed down. They were called Power Panties. And they stayed down on the leg, but didn't leave that visible line or bulge through our clothes that all the other shapers in the world had that kept it down. And I got a chance to be on QVC, and I came off of an 8-minute segment and had sold something like 20,000 pair. And, you know, standing in the department stores, a really good day would be selling like 50. I'd get to the hotel room and be like, I sold 50 today. So I went into the green room, and I have this very visual moment of like collapsing on the couch there and thinking, I'm not a one-hit wonder, I'm a company. That's my second product, and they like it.
Give it up.
Thank you.
The Tony Robbins podcast is a collection of interviews and stories and is produced by the Tony Robbins team. Copyright Robbins Research International.
Sara Blakely là nhà sáng lập hãng đồ lót Spanx, nữ tỷ phú tự thân trẻ nhất thế giới, khởi nghiệp với số tiền tiết kiệm $5.000. Bất cứ ai khi nghe đến câu chuyện của Sara đều tìm thấy sự hăng hái và năng lực cầm đầu. Cô tươi tắn, cởi mở, hài hước và hết lòng đam mê với việc giúp phụ nữ tưởng tượng có hình dáng đẹp và thay đổi tất cả những xu hướng sai lầm và giúp phụ nữ trang bị bộ đồ lót thiếu phù hợp trong vòng 50 năm qua. Dưới đây là những bài học Sara đúc kết trên con đường lập nghiệp. Và từ sai lầm, người cha yêu quý của Sara đã dạy các con và sức mạnh từ những sai lầm. Mỗi ngày, cha dạy cô sẽ hỏi, vậy con yêu không có lỗi gì? Và nếu không có lỗi lầm nào, con sẽ rất thất vọng. Trải qua những thất bại lớn, Sara hiểu rằng thất bại không phải là kết thúc mà nó liên quan đến sự thiếu cố gắng để đưa bản thân trở thành cảm giác hài lòng, thỏa mãn và nỗ lực hết mình để đạt được nhiều hơn những gì bạn làm được trước đây. Vì thế, đôi khi thất bại là một điều tốt để chúng ta rút ra bài học cho bản thân, tránh lặp lại những lần sau. Đừng chia sẻ những ý tưởng mới với thế giới quá sớm. Sara dự kiến ý tưởng về một mẫu sản phẩm mới sắc sỡ nhất trong suốt cả một năm trời. Trong khi thực hiện các mẫu thử nghiệm, chỉ đến khi nào Sara cảm thấy tin tưởng 100% rằng đã sẵn sàng để khởi động, cô muốn mời bạn này đến để giải thích một hướng phát triển của mong muốn. Sara cho rằng các ý tưởng là hoàn toàn mong manh, dễ bị tổn thương. Vì thế, đừng vội vàng chia sẻ ngay với mọi người khi ý tưởng vừa mới manh nha. Hãy chờ cho đến khi bạn sẵn sàng bắt tay vào thực hiện, rồi hãy chia sẻ với mọi người. Khi đó, mọi người sẽ đưa ra nhiều ý kiến và đưa ra tất cả lý do khiến bạn đồng chí, kể cả việc tại sao ý tưởng đó không được thực hiện. Nhưng mà khi bạn đã có định hướng, đường đi cụ thể, những lời gièm pha, sẽ không thể ảo bạn. Đừng nói không với mỗi câu trả lời. Trong những cuộc nói chuyện với các nhà sản xuất tiềm năng, Sara đã được hỏi 3 câu khác nhau. Cô là ai? Cô làm cùng ai? Ai giúp đỡ cô? Câu trình Oprah, bất cứ điều gì không phải là cần thiết để xây dựng sản phẩm, chỉ đơn giản không phải là một ưu tiên. Phá vỡ khuôn mẫu là một điều tốt. Khi Sara bắt đầu nghiên cứu đồ lót cho phụ nữ và chúng được làm thế nào trong 50 năm qua, cô đã rất ngạc nhiên. Từ việc đo kích thước một cách vô lý, chỉ đo thắt lưng trung bình và sử dụng cho tất cả các sản phẩm, bất kể kích cỡ của quần áo, cho tới các sản phẩm đã được thử nghiệm như thế nào trên mannequin, không phải trên người thực. Sara thấy rằng ngành trách nhiệm đồ lót cần một quan điểm đúng đắn của nữ giới. Những hiểu biết sâu sắc về một người phụ nữ thực sự mặc các mặt hàng này để định hướng phát triển của sản phẩm. Nhờ đó, sản phẩm sẽ tốt, hiệu quả và bền vững. Cô đã phá vỡ khuôn mẫu, tiếp cận các mặt hàng mới để phát triển bền vững. Và đây là lời khuyên của Sara Blakely dành cho chúng ta. Hãy tin vào ý tưởng của bạn, tin vào bản năng của bạn và mình sẽ có bạn. Tôi đã mất 2 năm từ thời gian tôi có ý tưởng cho Spanx cho đến khi tôi có một sản phẩm trong tay, sẵn sàng bán vào các cửa hàng. Tôi đã nghe nói từ không 1000 lần. Nếu bạn tin tưởng 100% vào ý tưởng của mình, đừng để bất cứ ai ngăn